What's up everybody, SuperDurks fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2012 Volkswagen Beetle Turbo. Huge thanks to Harrison Auto Sales for hooking me up with this very cool little Beetle here to review for you guys today. So about the Beetle Turbo, for the 2012 model year here, they actually completely restyled it. It's a completely new chassis and everything, and it's from the ground up completely new. And I think that it really went a long way to make this car look a lot better and a little less like a chick car. I know a lot of people still have that stigma about Beetles, but I think this one, especially in black with, being the turbo model with the more aggressive front bumper and wheels and the spoiler in the back that's large enough to put your drive-in food on it if you wanted to. It's really cool to, have all those little enhancements to make these cars look a little more aggressive. I mean, it still is a friendly car. It doesn't look too mean or pissed off, which is kind of refreshing in a, world where, most performance cars these days all look like they want to murder you. This one actually has a little bit of a grin on its face, which is nice to see. It's a lot less bubbly than the previous generations. Now the roof line is a lot more, flat and a little bit more of a fastback profile instead of the bubble of the previous version. And overall, I think it's actually a pretty cool looking little car. As for the interior of the Beetle Turbo here, it's pretty cool. Again, completely new here for the 2012 model year. Anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, they're actually really nice. They're, cloth fabric here, but they have really good support. They're very similar to the GTI seats, which I, mentioned in my reviews of those, especially the new 2015 one I really liked. And these seats are just as good. They're really nice. They're comfortable still. They're a little bit on the firm side, but they're good. But the bolstering, it's good. It's very firm, and you have enough wiggle room there that's comfortable for all body sizes, but just really great. And the thigh bolstering is really good as well, and just overall a really nice feeling seat. Next is the steering wheel in the Beetle, which is very unique in the fact that it's a pretty thin wheel, which is cool. I think it kind of fits with the personality of this vehicle and, the idea of a Beetle, but it's still got a flat bottom and a really perfect 9-3 grip. It's really nice. It's less beefy than a GTI wheel, but I really like this wheel, actually. I think it's very, very cool and nicely leather wrapped and everything. No buttons on this one, just very simple. I like the body-colored inserts. And speaking of those body-colored inserts, real quick, this car being black, it's not as pronounced as it is on the brighter colored cars, but this panel here, the steering wheel panel, and then normally the dash panel as well, are all color matched to the exterior color of the car, which is really cool on, the brighter colors, the blues and the reds and stuff like that. To have that nice splash of color in this car is a very cool feature and a very retro thing, of course, but I absolutely love retro stuff, and I like colorful interiors. This one is less, but I think it's very elegant with the piano black here, to match the outside. Getting back to the front here, we have the speedometer and the gauges, which are pretty interesting. So you have your big speedometer there, which is good. You got your little basic readout, which gives you your temperature and trip computer, and that's about it. But then you have those two gauges on the left and the right. The left one is the tachometer, which is a good little size. And then on the right side is the largest fuel gauge I've ever seen in a car. It's as big as the tachometer and gives you a very, very accurate reading of exactly how much fuel you have in your tank. Now on the turbos, you do have these auxiliary gauges up here. So you have an oil temperature gauge, you have a stopwatch, which is very cool, and then you also have a boost gauge, which goes up to 35 psi, which is way beyond what it needs to read for a factory little turbo Beetle here, not putting out nearly that much boost. And the other thing about the boost gauge is it's the farthest gauge away in this pod. I wish they would have swapped it for the oil temperature gauge or something. It's just so far away that when you're driving down the road looking straight, that's a little out of the way there. I wish it was a little bit more in the forefront of your view. Coming down to the rest of the interior here, the center of the dash, you have this nice radio, which is your basic essential radio. And now this is a base 2012 turbo model, so you don't even have Bluetooth, and you just have the auxiliary jack and AM/FM radio, and that's it. But that's okay. Obviously, like I said, in the newer years, you could, they had Bluetooth audio streaming, and you can get a nav, you upgrade to a nav screen, which has all the other gadgets in it. This one's just basic, but it's fine. The stereo so far, I've been using it. It's been pretty good quality. Coming down to the climate controls here, very basic gauges, but they feel higher quality than the Golf and the GTI, in my opinion. I actually really like them. They have a nice metal finish on them here, and you have heated seats, and yeah, so that's good. And then the only other strange thing is you have this sea of blank buttons here at the bottom, which I guess if you had more options, those would do other things. But in the base car, it's kind of silly to have so many buttons, and the only one that works is the hazard lights. Now, this Beetle being a manual, I want to talk about the shifter for a quick second here. It's a very long throw. It's a very tall shifter, but it's nicely placed. Again, there is no armrest here, so you can't really rest your arm on anything. But it's just, it's in a pretty good place here. It's just very tall, and you have a plastic shift knob that isn't my favorite. I'd probably replace that if I owned one of these. As far as store space in the Beetle here, it's pretty good. So you have this map pocket here in the doors, but it's only held back by this piece of like elastic kind of. I wish there was an actual net or something to secure things a little bit better, but you have that. And then coming along to the center here, you have a very nice and deep large center cubby, which is really handy, and that's where your auxiliary jack is. So you can leave your iPod and things like that in there. There is no USB jacks in this car though. That's one thing I gotta say, and that's Volkswagen omitted them for years, and I think 2015 or 2016 they just added USB jacks, but you at least have the auxiliary jack there, and you do have a power outlet right next to the shifter too, so you can plug things in there. So good to have that. And then you have your two cup holders. You have another little like change holder thing back here, and then you have this other large center cubby, which I wish there was an armrest. I think that may be an option or a dealer installed accessory, but there is no armrest here. You just have this cubby, which is a good size though. You can fit lots of things in there. You have a third cup holder back here for your rear seat occupants, and another power outlet. And then one other cool little thing, a little retro throwback that Volkswagen did is, in addition to the normal glove box down here at the bottom, you also have a retro styled one right here that you can open up, and you have some additional storage there, and that's very similar to what you would have seen in an original Beetle. That would have been the glove box, and so it's cool that they've incorporated that. As far as the back seat in the Beetle, it's actually pretty good. Now, it's not going to be as spacious, of course, as like a two-door Golf or something like that because of the roofline, but it's actually better than expected, and I think better than the previous generation Beetle, actually. You have, with me sitting behind myself, I'm 5'9", and sitting behind myself, I have, I'd say, maybe 2 inches of legroom there still to spare, which is good, and a lot of the stuff like the Mustang and stuff, mine needs to be right up against the back of the seat, but you do have a little bit of wiggle room there, and then I actually have a few inches of headroom as well, so your head's not banging up against the roof unless you're over 6 feet tall, which is nice. So good amount of space. I wouldn't put someone back there all the time, but it'll certainly work every once in a while. Trunk space in the Beetle is actually much improved over the previous generation Beetle. Those ones were pretty small. This new one is actually pretty good. It's not far off from the GTI's space back there, honestly. I mean, you have more of a slope instead of the square, hatch like you do in the GTI and stuff. So it's not quite as practical, but it's actually a lot of room, surprisingly. And you easily fit, a full week's worth of groceries. You could fit, I'd say probably, a couple suitcases in there. And overall, a pretty good trunk, actually. All right, so start up and go for a drive. The Beetle, of course, like all other Volkswagens in 2012, still with the switchblade key that I really like. Anyway, you just slip that in. It starts right up. Alright, so setting off in the 2012 Volkswagen Beetle Turbo. The first thing that I noticed with this car in particular, which has about 31,000 miles on it, the clutch releases up towards the top, so it's a very long throw on the clutch pedal, which is just something that takes a little bit of getting used to. The shifter, though, also has a very long throw. As far as visibility goes, it's excellent. You have a pretty large windshield here, you can see out of very well. The dashboard sits a little high, with the way my seating position is. Of course, you could raise the seat up. But the hood drops down nicely, so you can see out, forward very well. Large side glass, you can see out of there just fine. The B-pillar is way far back there as well, so that most likely won't get in your way. The only thing that's bad about the visibility is the rear visibility. Because of that hatch, it's a pretty large window, but for some reason they gave it a really small little rear view mirror, so it's not the best for seeing out of. I wish it was, a little bit better. Alrighty, so let's turn onto this back road here and see how it does. There we go. Okay, wow, it rips. Jeez, that's faster than I was expecting, and for some reason feels slightly faster than a GTI. Anyway, so we're dealing with the same chassis and the same engine as the GTI. 200 horsepower, 207 pound-feet of torque, which comes on at a very early 1700 RPM for the torque. So, I mean, a very torquey turbo motor, and really good power. 0 to 60 time in these is around 6.5 seconds. Quarter mile time is right under 15 seconds at 14.9 as well. And so it's a pretty good performer, I gotta say. anyway, pretty nice little, 2-liter turbocharged engine here. And as far as how it feels, so the steering has a nice weight to it. It has a good feeling as well. It's a little bit heavier than I was expecting, but I actually really like it. Going around these corners here now, we got one coming up here. Let's see how it feels. It feels pretty good. Now, it feels a little rolly, a tad bit. I don't know why. It's similar to the R32 I just reviewed as well, that also had a little bit of that lean built into it. I don't know if that's a Volkswagen thing or what. This car does weigh about 70 pounds less than a comparable GTI at right under 3,200 pounds. So pretty good weight as well. But anyway, coming up this tight corner I always take. See about the body roll. Yeah, there is some body roll. Wow, I'm surprised, especially being the turbo. You think a sportier suspension setup would eliminate some of that, but there is definitely some body roll there. Interesting. Was not expecting that much. We're on 235 with all-season tires, by the way, as well. That may have something to do with it, but I figured the tires would have a pretty good, feeling. But anyway, see about another acceleration here, shall we? And there's... hear that? Wow, this thing gets up and goes. But as you can see, obviously front-wheel drive and likes to spin the tires, which is totally expected with this much torque available at such a low RPM. Makes it fun. I like sharpening the tires there and spinning the wheels in first gear. So anyway, yeah, pretty nice. Now we're on a main road here, and feels pretty good so far, honestly. A very smooth ride, and yeah, just cruising at a normal speed here. I wish there was some more engine noise, though. I mean, you get a little bit of a growl from the front end, but obviously no exhaust noise, really, and not much noise. I wish, obviously, that's something you can fix in the aftermarket, but I would certainly wish there was a lot more noise there to, I guess, I don't know, even a GTI seems to have more noise to it, so I'm not sure if that's just the way they set up the Beetle or what, but overall, pretty impressive. I gotta say, though, I think it's a little less sharp feeling than a GTI, at least around those few first corners. I'm kind of surprised. I thought being lighter weight that it would actually be sharper and more eager to dive into corners, but does not seem to be the case. But anyway, I'm going to drive this car around for a while longer here, and I'll come back and give you some updated impressions. Alright, so I've been driving the Beetle Turbo here for a little while longer, and it's a really fun car. I love the low-end torque, and I love how it digs itself out of corners, but it's not as sharp as I was expecting, and I'm really kind of shocked as to why that is, because like I said, it's lighter than a GTI. It's obviously smaller. It's on the same chassis and the same platform as the GTI, so I mean, I don't know how many parts carry over from the GTI, but I would assume that they share a good amount of parts, and I'm just so surprised by how much better I remember the GTI feeling, especially, the 2015 one, but even the older ones just always seem to have really good turn-in and really good bite, and just a little more eager to dive into corners. This, it always seems like it's a beat behind you, and it's, I don't know if maybe they, engineered the body roll into it to make it a little more playful and fun than a GTI and a little less serious, but I find myself not having quite as much confidence going into a corner as I would with a GTI or something like that. I mean, it handles great though, and once you do pitch it into a corner and you get over that initial first lean, then it does, do a very good job of, standing its ground and getting you around the corner really well. One thing that I was really impressed with on the Beetle here is the ride quality. Even over, imperfect pavement, bumps and stuff here at higher speeds, it does a really good job. It's really smooth, very refined. It feels very refined to drive, much more so than the previous Beetle again. They just really improved it here for the 2012 and up model years. They did a really good job. But yeah, see, you push it into a corner and it just feels like it doesn't want to do it quite as much. I'm sorry, I keep coming back to the handling. It really stands out to me. But I mean, the steering weight is phenomenal. It's just about perfect. I really love the way the steering feels. I just wish the turn-in was a little bit quicker and a little bit sharper. I mean, see, I can go like this and it's not doing a whole lot, so that is the one thing that it's kind of a drawback to me, and I think the GTI does better. So would I take this over a GTI? Well, I mean, I don't know. It just depends on your personal preference, you know. I mean, I think it's a really cool alternative because there's lots of GTIs out there and Golfs are everywhere. So it's nice to, you know, have something a little bit different. Beetles aren't super common anymore. You know, the original first generation obviously were everywhere, and then the new Beetle, which came out in '98, those were everywhere for a while. But now those are kind of starting to die off as well as they age, and so Beetles aren't quite as common anymore. So it's just cool to have, you know, something that's a little bit different looking and stand out from the rest of the Volkswagen crowd. And you know, I think that's this car's strength, because obviously it's less practical than a GTI. I've found that it's less sharp in the handling department as a GTI. You have the same power as a GTI. Everything else is basically the same, you know, as far as specs. You know, I think this car gets 21 miles per gallon in the city here for the manual and 30 on the highway, which is right in line with, you know, most cars of this caliber, I suppose. So that's fine. You know, so it's mostly just, do you want a more stylish, less practical GTI? If so, this is pretty good. I mean, I think if you're driving a GTI all the time and you hop into this, you're not going to be hugely disappointed by the handling. You know, it's just a little bit softer, I think, and a little more casual in the way that it's set up over the GTI. I will say that because it's, you know, this little bit of a softer setup with the Beetle here, it actually, I think the ride is better than the GTI. It's more smooth than a GTI. The GTI is a little bit more sporty, a little bit stiffer in my opinion, and this doesn't have that stiffness, which I actually think is nice, you know, for casual daily driving. Now, if you're, you know, tearing up a back road, you wish you had the GTI stuff. So, you know, that's, I think, the main difference between these two is just obviously the body styling and then the suspension setup. But I mean, the engine's great, same front wheel drive, and it's a really good little car here still. I really like it. I wanted to do this car. I know, you know, a lot of people still don't like them because they think they're girly or for whatever reason, just because it's not practical or whatever. But I just was always curious about these Beetles here, and so I'm glad that I gave it a try. It's certainly a fun car, and I think, like I said, it'd be great for those that don't want to blend in with all the other, you know, Volkswagen GTIs that are in abundance out there. You know, and it's got great punch, I gotta say. I mean, this thing really just growls and just takes off, and the front wheel spin is really fun as well, and yeah, just a really great little car. So anyway, this one is for sale, by the way, at Harrison Auto Sales. So if you're interested in it, all the links are in the description below, and you can give them a call and tell them I sent you, and they'd be more than happy to help you out. This one, you know, only 31,000 miles, and they have it priced very aggressively. So very, very good deal, I think, and probably a little bit cheaper than GTI as well, or a GLI or something like that. So that's another thing to consider as well. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.